Hey guys, got a good one here. Door got folded back open too far into the fender, so I've got a nice buckle in the door and the frame of it, and the fender is caved in. So I've got a new door, actually used off of a 2017 model. This is 2015. Looks to be the same color. It's over here. Trying to not have to paint the inside, and if I can get by with it, I'm just going to blend the fender into this door if it matches the back door well enough. Trying to avoid painting the back door. This is an out-of-pocket job. He's not wanting to claim it. So to get the hinges are actually rolled around on the post, so I'm going to have to knock those back. So to get all that off, I'm going to have the fender out of the way, and to do that I got to get the bumper and the headlight out of the way. So I'm going to start in the front, just pull the bumper back. I don't know if I'll take it all the way off or not. For right now, I may take it off later when I go to mount the new fender. But I at least need to get all this off and get the door fitted to it to get the car sealed back up. So I'm going to start there. So the front end is going to come off, at least enough to get the fender off. And I'll just get the door fitted when I get the fender off there. All right, I just got everything off down to the door. And there's this gap filler in here that mounts to the body. That got bent around. It broke several places on those ribs right there. A little hook broke off right there where it hangs onto the fender. So I'm going to replace this because it may interfere with the door. It may catch on the door later and pop the paint off or something, or rub on the outside when the door opens up. So I'm going to go ahead and replace this just to prevent that. But you can see how the hinges got pulled away from the body there in the back. It's even worse at the bottom. You can see that. So I'm going to take the door off. Take the door off by these bolts here and leave the hinges so I can hammer the hinge back to straighten the post. And then I'll use the new hinges I got with the new door. But I'm going to go ahead and take off the trim panel, the mirror, and whatever else I need to take off to transfer to the other door anyway. That way it'll be lighter when I go to take this off. I won't have near as much weight in it. I may even pull the glass out just to make it lighter. Doesn't take but a second. I think I can use the glass over in that door over there because neither one of them's tinted, so I think I can just leave that glass in the other door. I don't have to transfer glass, but I may take it out of this one just to lighten it up. Trim panels are different. This is leather, so I'm going to have to use this one. I'm going to go ahead and take it off since I got to transfer it. All right, I'm getting ready to knock the hinges back. Once I get the hinges rolled back straight to the body, then I'll get the other door and I'll set it up on the car and latch it to the latch, and then run the bolts into the hinges. I'll try to leave the hinges on the other door, the new door. That way when I can line up the gap at the bottom and have it latched in the back and just tighten the hinges down to the body, and that should align everything. And I'll make sure it's not sprung like it was. It's trying to kick the door out now because the hinges are bent. So I'll try to leave the ones on the other door and just align it that way and tighten it down to the body. It's actually just sliding around under the bolt, so I'm just going to get it straight in that direction and leave it. Just trying to stop there. I think that's because it's pulling the body structure now inside where the bolts go in. It's probably good there. Let me get the door on. Well, first I'm going to take these hinges off, then I'll get the new door on and align the gaps and then tighten it down. See where we are. All right, I set it up there and stuck 2 bolts in it, one at the top, one at the bottom. I'm going to check the gap on the other door and take some paint sticks and just wedge them in. Wedge them in on each end until I get the gap right. And I can adjust it with like a body filler spreader or something like that, and just kind of as a wedge to fine tune it. But I'm going to go check the other side and get it even across the bottom and get the gap at the door consistent at the back door. And then I'll run these bolts down. All right, I've got paint sticks in the front there. The latch is pretty much holding it where it needs to be back here, up and down. And I've got one and a wedge holding my gap. And the gap looks very consistent, and it might be a hair wider than the other door over there, but what I'll do now is once I get these things snug in the front, I can just knock the hinge back just a little bit to close the gap up. That way the door won't really move on me. I think that's going to be good. I'm going to snug it down just like hand tight, and I can knock it back just a little bit and make the hinge slide underneath the bolt to adjust the door gap in the back, just to make it perfect. All right, I've got it where I'm going to leave it. Nice gap, nice and even along the bottom. I think I'm going to have to go in right here. I've got a note here to knock this hinge in. I was in here checking the seal, and I reached in there with just a little plastic trim tool to see how tight the seal is there, and it's just barely touching the body. It would probably be okay, but I want to make sure that I've got it good. And I can look down here and see that it's pulled away a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and knock that in. I went ahead and decided to take the door back off. I only had to take these 4 bolts out of the hinge, and that'll go right back in the same place because these have the shoulder under the head. You can buy a service bolt that doesn't have that, where you can make some adjustments in and out, but I would have to go order those from Honda, and I can just do this faster than that. Go ahead and get this door fitted. But you can see, trying to get you a straight edge on this. This part right here is pulled out. You can see that's rocking along the line between the 2 bolt holes. When it rotated the hinge and I pushed it back, that's protruded from the body. So I'm just going to knock this in, and it can actually go in below flush, because when I tighten the hinge up, the hinge will bottom out around here, and that'll just flatten it back out. But at least it'll allow the hinge to sit all the way flush to the body and not sit off about, a millimeter or whatever that is. I'm going to knock that in, and that'll allow that seal to touch in here. It's just barely touching right here. I don't want any water leaking in through the door down into the body. It would never get past this seal, but you could have some wind noise too, so wind and dust getting in here. So I'm going to make sure this is all the way in. I think the top is okay. I can probably knock it in, but the way this hinge sits, I can only hit it right there on the end with the block of wood, and that's still trying to rotate it a little bit like this. So with it off, I can just get a direct hit right into the body. I'll go ahead and remount this. I marked the holes where the bolt heads were, so I can put it back in the same place, and then we'll refit the door. All right, I've got it to where it's flat here. As I bring it up, I can't get this flat edge to rock anymore, so it's at least flush or slightly under. I'm going to get the hinge bolted back on, and I may put some more touch-up paint in here. I actually coated this before I put the hinge back on with the new door, so that this raw metal was covered. It looks like I need a little bit more in here where I was hammering on it. All right, I've got it remounted. We got the holes lined right back up where I marked it. Now that I've got them both snug, I'm going to take this bottom one out, and I'm going to put a little bit of silicone just right underneath in the threads and right underneath the head of it where they had body sealing in there. That's just to keep the water from getting in through here and into the inside the car there. So I'm going to replace one at a time. Take this one out, silicone it, tighten it down, then take that one back out. That way I'm not having to adjust this while the silicone's in there. Then I'll get the door back on it. All right, seal is just a little bit tighter, probably okay now, but I'm gonna wait and get the fender on in a second, see how far in or out the door can still go. It's probably okay where it is. If it's not sealing for some reason, I'll get some service bolts if I don't have any already. I've got to get this filler piece in here, this plastic filler, so I got to order stuff from Honda anyway. I may just go ahead and get 2 service bolts, or maybe 3, so that I can, if I have to put 2 in here, I can still be able to hinge around the top bolt and have an adjustable bolt here, and then both down there if I need to pull it in some more. So At most I should need 3 bolts. If they're cheap, I may just go ahead and get 4. That way I can have them all adjustable if I need it. Now that I'm finished, I'm probably going to come in here and touch up these bolts when I'm done. I'll paint with the fender off this time, just so I don't have to mask as much off on the car, and that way I can jam the fender while I'm painting it. I'm going to have to put chip guard at the bottom too, so I'll mark where the chip guard's got to be when I get it fit to the car. But this way I can spray the jam and the fender and all off the car. And this is simple enough to install with no rocker molding like on that Acura I just did. I can just set the fender on here and bolt it up. Not worry too much about paint damage. That way I only have to mask it off for the door. I could pull the door off, hang it, and paint it off the car too, but it's so heavy I don't want to risk dropping it trying to put it back on. I have to do it by myself, so I'm going to paint it with it on the car. The other thing I got to do now is get all the trim off the door. But since I need to get the glass out, it makes it 1,000 times easier to get this belt molding off with the glass out. It'll just rotate off and pop off of there instead of having to break the clips. But to get the window down and out of the way, I've got to hook up the wiring, but this harness is different on this 2017 door. It's a little bit wider connector, and that doesn't fit this, so I'm going to have to change the wiring harness out anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now so I can get the window down and then get the glass and door handle out of it. Alright, fender's on. I've got all the hardware and wiring and everything from the original door inside the new one. The regulator, speaker, lock actuator, wiring harness and everything been swapped over just so there's no compatibility issues with anything. I've run the window up and down, it works. Got everything fitted to the hood here. Body lines look good, gaps. The only issue is down at the bottom. You're gonna have to assume this is a known good profile here, and that the door sitting out like this, if you can see that. Door sitting out a millimeter, maybe 2. So I'll get the service bolts, and that'll allow me to push the door in even further and get it tighter to the seal. And I'll just get it flush to the fender down here, and we should be good to go. But I'm gonna go ahead and get these parts cleaned and prep for paint, and I'll just move the door in when I get the bolts. All right, I'm getting ready to prep the fender. I've got to take these labels off, and I marked where the rocker panel coating is supposed to go here. It's going to be from basically this side down. I'm going to scribe a line on it in a minute with a ruler, and prep all this and scuff it out past it. Put a piece of foam tape, and I'll just do the rocker coating there tonight after I get this inside painted. I'm going to put easy coat on this. Let's see where I set it. This is olive green. And matching, I'm basically trying to match this right here. That's basically what Honda's been using. So that's going to go on the inside here to color match the inside of what would have been there. And then I'll just paint the outside all together, and that'll overspray onto this just like it would have been done when it was painted in the factory. So I'm going to get the labels off and clean all this and spray this inside, and then I can flip over and put the rocker panel guard, this textured rocker guard here on the bottom. Alright, I'm ready for the rocker guard. I've got the easy coat on the inside, let it dry for about 20 minutes, flipped it over. I've got tape about 1/4 inch off where I want to stop, and then I laid the foam tape right after that, past the line that I scribed where it needs to stop. I'm going to get about 3 coats on this just to build it up. It takes about 2 to just get coverage, and then a 3rd one to actually add some thickness to it. But I'm going to stick the bolt, or a bolt just like the bolt that came out of it, in a hole. That way when I go to tighten it, I'm not trying to compress this rocker guard. I'll actually be on the fender. So I'm going to stick just a throwaway bolt in there that I'll paint over. And the other one was actually done on the car, and it was just buried, so I had to run it out and just kind of tear the rocker guard off with the bolt as it came out. But I'm going to put one in it for the first coat, well, for all the coats, and then knock it out after the last coat. All right, the bolt's in there. This is the original bolt. It was just buried in the rocker guard. So I hammered the socket on it, and then as I turned the bolt out, it just pulled itself out of the rocker guard. So That bolt may not be perfectly centered on the hole where it'll end up being, but it'll be close, so I won't have so much of this stuff to compress. All right, I'm going to give that about 5 minutes flash just to get the base of it nice and dry so the next coats will hold on to it. Silicone coat. Wipe this tip off. All right, give that another 5 or 10 minutes. I'll put a final third coat on it and be done. All right, I've test fit the fender one more time now that I've got the rocker guard on it, because I'm gonna have to move this door in. So the bolts should be here tomorrow. I'm having those delivered probably by the afternoon. And I'll get the bolts in from inside the door. What I'll do is I'll take out the bolt. I'll take this bolt out completely. This one out completely. Actually, I'll leave that one in. I'm going to put a service bolt down here first, then take this bolt out. So the middle two will be out, and I'll have a service bolt at the bottom. So I'll just adjust the door in and out with that service bolt and tighten it down until I get it straight on the outside and flush with the fender. And then I'll just put the 2 service bolts in here and here. And I'm going to keep this one original so that it's got a shoulder inside it to keep the height of the door right. That way the door can't drop this way with that original bolt in the top that has the shoulder on it. If I have to put a service bolt in there, I will later after I get the other 3 in there. But as I get this in flush, all the rest of it should just take care of itself. And that top bolt will just hold the height of it to keep this body line straight. So once I get those in, I'll take the fender back off and finish sanding it. I don't want to expose any bare metal on it until right before I'm going to paint it. But the gaps look good. They match the other side. Nice and flush. Get the headlight in it just to make sure that it's going to sit where it needs to inside this fender. So now I know it should fit when I go to put it back on. I don't have any issues with headlight rubbing the paint or anything. Next thing will be getting this thing masked up and ready for paint. This is all 1000 grit and gray Scotch-Brite with some scuff paste. I decided to use that on this one. Just felt like it. So I'm going to get the fender back off. Once I get the door set, then I'll mask off the car to spray the door, and the fender will be on the panel stand over there, just separate. All right, Honda just left the bolts. They're actually a little bit shorter, but you can see it doesn't have this shoulder on it here, so you can actually slide the door around in the hinge. I'm going to get the 2 out of the middle that I told you I would take out, and we'll put this one in at the bottom, get the door right. And that way I can go ahead and get the door fitted to the fender while it's here, and then I'll pull the fender off and paint it. About to sand it as soon as I get the door fitted. All right, service bolts in at the bottom. So I've got one original bolt here with a shoulder, no bolt there, no bolt there, and then at the bottom of that hinge I've got the service bolt. And I got it in as far as I can get it, and I just had to pull the fender out probably, I don't know, 32nd of an inch, not much at all, just to match up to the door. Should be good now. When you get this fender off, get it sanded, get everything ready to paint. We're ready to go here. Got the fender ready on the stand. Need to wipe it down real good, tack it. I was gonna get a coat of sealer. This over here, I'm gonna leave this covered until I get the base coat, the first coat of base on the fender. Then I'll cut this out, and that way I can keep it clean until I get ready to put color on it. Leaving this plastic on here will keep it clean, and also that'll give me something to do while I'm waiting on the sealer to flash on the fender. I can be masking this off or cutting this out and masking the door while I wait on the fender to flash to get the base coat ready for it. Okay, as soon as that overspray clears, I'm going to go unmask the door there and get it taped off. And then I'll get the base coat ready for the fender and get at least one coat on it, and then I'll start on the door after that. All right, the sealer's been on for about 10 or 12 minutes now, and it's still slightly wet. Just to save some time here, I'm gonna go ahead and blend the door. Since I've got to put the clear adhesion promoter in my gun to spray it all over the whole door, if I put the base coat on the fender first, then I got to clean the color out of the gun to then put the clear base on this, and then put more base coat back in it to finish everything. So since it's such a dark color, I don't think I'm going to have to thin the base, so I'm going to go ahead and put the clear adhesion promoter down over the door and go ahead and just blend the door back. I'll put 2 coats here and a drop coat. Go ahead and blend it out, and then by the time I'm done with that, the fender will be ready to go, and I'll just put 2.5 coats on it, and I won't have to wait on this sealer any longer, and I don't have to clean the gun out 2 or 3 times. All right, I'm ready for the base coat. By the time I got it ready, the fender is just about ready to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and just start on the fender and then hit the door, which is the way I want to do it anyway, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it like that. There's a little bit of a chip in the very back edge by the handle I had to cover up, and there was some shipping damage along the bottom edge I'm trying to cover up too. All right, it's been about 20 minutes since I put this on. Nice and flat now. I'm gonna clear all the way around it on the second coat. I'm just gonna put one coat on the inside jamb, so I'll just coat the outside, come back, jam the inside, and then coat the outside again, so it'll be one closed coat with just one coat on the inside. Here's the blend. Go ahead and get the clear mixed up now.
One more cut in just a few minutes.
All right, here it is. Been about an hour and a half or so, maybe an hour. Fender came out really nice. Should match well. Door. Gonna have to buff out a little bit of dust, which is typical. But the finish looks perfectly fine. There's the factory texture there. There's the new one. If anything, it's a little slicker maybe. But got a good enough finish there that it shouldn't be noticeable that anything was done. All right, I'm ready to put the fender on. I've got the door built up. I don't know if I showed you this or not. Got everything on it. Trim paneling all back in it. So the door part of the job is finished. Just need to double check this seal down here and make sure it's nice and tight. Should be now that I moved the door in. And I'm ready to put the fender on. I'm gonna put just a spot here where the NVH foam was that glues this fender basically to the body. I'm gonna replace that right there. I've got some of it out. This is 3M 4274 NVH dampening material. I'm actually doing some work on the doors on the M3 over there, so I'm gonna do all this at once. Since I had to get it out for this one spot on the fender, I just went ahead and did the doors on that. So that's gonna get just a dab of it there, enough to make contact with the fender, and I've scuffed with a Scotch-Brite right back here, just enough for it to stick. And once I get it on there, this gap filler piece here will go inside the gap there, but I'm going to spray a little cavity wax down inside the fender right in here where it's going to collect junk at the bottom of the fender there before I put that filler piece in. The M3 took about almost the whole tube here to try to do everything indoors I could, but I saved a little bit of this to replace this with. So that will just compress and take the shape of the fender there. And this is non-expanding foam, so I don't have to worry about it expanding out on me while I put the fender on. It'll just take the shape of it and stay flexible when it sets up. This is what you use on intrusion beams and things like that inside the door, whereas the door skin heats and heat cycles in the sun, it'll expand with it and won't pull dents in the door as it heats up. All right, I've got it reassembled. Color match is pretty good. I can see a slight difference in it, but nothing the customer's ever gonna see. Bumper actually matched pretty well. Nice gap here. Just need to buff out the dust that's in it and wash it, and it'll be good to go. I'll give you a final look when I get finished with everything. All right, here it is in the sun. Color matched pretty well. Looks better out here than it did in the garage. Customer ought to be here sometime this afternoon. See you guys on the next one.